I'm here once again with John DiLeo for another episode of No Small Parts. Can you ever forgive me?
2018, starring Melissa McCarthy. Yes. Um, it's one of the 100 movies that come up in my book, There Are No Small Parts. 100 outstanding film performances with screen time of 10 minutes or less. Obviously, not Melissa McCarthy, who I think is in every scene in the movie. We're talking about Jane Curtin, who plays her agent. And she's in the movie for 4.5 minutes. She has two scenes, a party scene, but then the main scene is the scene between agent and client, Jane Curtin and Melissa McCarthy. McCarthy's playing the real life writer Lee Israel. And what is particularly interesting to me writing this book is because another of the entries in this book is Sidney Pollack as the agent to Dustin Hoffman in Tootsie. And Jane Curtin's big scene in this movie is almost identically the same scene, except the Tootsie scene is hilariously funny, and the scene in this movie is dramatic. It's not funny, even though it's being played by two of really great funny ladies, Melissa McCarthy and Jane Curtin. But in both scenes, in both movies, an agent is basically telling a long-standing client that in a sense, your career is over unless you do something to change it, because nobody wants what you do now the way you do it. You've got to change your ways. You've got to be easier to deal with. You've got to give people what they want, not what you want to give them. And so it's kind of a showdown. And it's difficult in both cases for an agent to tell a client what the client does not want to hear. They don't take it well, and they both react rather drastically. Dustin Hoffman turns to drag to find success, and Melissa McCarthy turns to forgery and selling letters by great people that she's, faking. And so she makes money that way. So it's the similar struck me, of course, in the writing of it. Now, Jane Curtin, of course, at this point was already something of a television legend with three hit series in her life, from Saturday Night Live to Kate and Alley to Third Rock from the Sun. And she and Melissa McCarthy had appeared together in the comedy The Heat as mother and daughter, briefly together in that actually very funny comedy with Sandra Bullock. And I think what's cool about seeing Jane Curtin in this is that she's not here to be funny. She's here to be rather caustic and sharp and intelligent and incisive, and she's such a smart actor. She really is so plausible in all of those facets, and that back and forth between the two actresses is really excellent. And though she never comes back, it's all in the early part of the film. She never comes back, but you remember that she was in the movie. There's something so in both cases, to watch two people deal with a very difficult situation, and me, perhaps as a writer, I'm terribly on edge through the whole thing of like hearing someone tell a writer all these things she doesn't want to hear about people not being interested in what she wants to do and do something else.
So even Jane and Buddy Epson from the previous episode both were known more for comedy before, and then this was a more serious roles that
Well,
they
I'd
were.
say with it's interesting. I was thinking of the television parallel. One, Buddy Epson was about to have a huge television career after Tiffany's, Breakfast at Tiffany's, and Jane Curtin was coming off of a legendary television career, now doing parts in movies.
What was her legendary television show, just for those people who don't know?
Well, I was saying she's part of the original cast of Saturday Night Live in the 70s. Then she wins 2 Emmys for the sitcom Kate and Alley in the 80s, and then part of the ensemble of Third Rock from the Sun with John Lithgow. Her teamwork with him was great. But I always loved her as a comic actress because she was always sort of dry and subtle, kind of a throwback to like the Eve Arden types of the 40s and 50s. Not a big slapsticky kind of comedian, someone who was sharp-witted. And even in a dramatic role, all of that comes through. So it was fun to write about her. And she's the second to last entry in the book.
So Marjorie's character serves as kind of a moral compass for Lee Israel.
Well, she encourages her to write a book about herself and not do these biographies of people that she doesn't think the public cares about anymore. As a moral compass, well, she suggests early in the movie for Lee Israel to write about herself, tell her story, rather than write biographies of characters that she feels nobody cares about anymore. In this case, it's Fanny Brice. Ultimately, that is what finally happens at the end of the movie. She'll write the story that is the story we're watching in this movie of what really happened. And so she does sort of predict the future and where her career should be going at the outset. But of course, there's this whole sort of story of forgery and cheating and lying that makes for good movies until we get there.
Yeah, it's another one that I'm going to watch
It's a very good movie.
after speaking with you.
I don't think the film did as well as it should have, so I would encourage you, in whichever streaming devices, wherever things are now, they pop up all over the place. Check out Can You Ever Forgive Me? Not just for Jane Curtin, but for Melissa McCarthy, who was nominated for an Oscar for it, and she's terrific in it.
Thanks very much. I'm sure a lot of us will do that.
Good. Thanks, Nick.